Bringing Alien and Predator together sounds like a genius idea, but in reality, it nearly destroyed both franchises and pushed these iconic monsters to the edge of extinction. The story of this crossover duology is incredibly messy, from Paul W.S. Anderson's surprisingly strong start to the sequel that became a true requiem for this ambitious attempt to unite two legendary sci-fi universes. Behind-the-scenes details, story breakdowns, canon connections, and hidden secrets. All of that is in this video. Hi, this is 11 Slate, and Alien vs. Predator Explained. The franchise experimented heavily in comics for years, while the studio kept trying to launch an Alien vs. Predator movie. Those plans ended up killing Predator 3 and Alien 5. The directors of the first two Alien films, Ridley Scott and James Cameron, were openly against the crossover idea. Sigourney Weaver joined them, saying she wanted nothing to do with it. Cameron would later soften his stance and actually enjoy the crossover, but Ridley Scott remained strongly opposed. He argued that Alien was no longer interesting in its current form and needed to evolve, that he had no intention of watching a crossover designed purely as fan service. So he went on a different direction and made Prometheus. But 8 years before that, in 2004, the long-awaited film that brings these iconic space monsters together finally reached the screen. And it was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who by that time had already earned a solid following with audiences. He proved he could make simple, almost bare-bones action movies that are still spectacular and genuinely entertaining. Some of them were even based on video games like Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil. So, ever since the second Predator movie, a couple of well-received shooters had come out, letting players take control of aliens, predators, or marines. So it's no surprise Anderson felt completely at home here. As a result, the long-awaited crossover did not turn into a horror film or a grand sci-fi epic, but into a fast-paced corridor-style shooter, just like the video games intended. For years, Fox tried to find the perfect story for Alien vs. Predator, something exciting and engaging, but also relatively cheap. Paul Anderson's idea, heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, fit perfectly. That story also deals with ancient creatures hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. Although the budget eventually climbed to a solid $70 million, the director simply did not want to rely on CGI for everything. He chose to focus on practical effects, which are not cheap. To cut costs, the story was moved into the present day, no futuristic sets or costumes. The main location became the underground chambers of an ancient pyramid discovered in Antarctica. Again, a smart way to save money. To make the otherwise dull setting more dynamic, the pyramid constantly reconfigures itself every 10 minutes. Very much in the spirit of the movie Cube. The plot follows a terminally ill founder of the future Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Yes, that Weyland, who gathers a group of scientists to explore structures built by an ancient race in a remote region. He briefs them only after arrival, rushes them into an unknown location without addressing basic safety concerns, and the entire team behaves incredibly unprofessionally, ultimately dying after encountering ancient aliens. Wait, hold on. A terminally ill founder of Weyland-Yutani gathers scientists to study ancient alien structures in a remote location? He rushes them in without proper precautions and then they all die because of their own incompetence? Yes, that is basically the exact plot of Prometheus, which would come out about 8 years later. And as we all know, Ridley Scott did not watch Anderson's film. Maybe he should have. He might have noticed a few issues in his own movie. The key difference between Alien vs. Predator and Prometheus is that in Anderson's film, the dumb characters who do not listen to each other actually feel somewhat natural within a fun action movie.
No! Don't touch them!
In Ridley Scott's existential prequel, they feel completely out of place. But sure, let's say it's all just a coincidence. Weyland is played by Lance Henriksen, who previously played the android Bishop in Aliens, so a century later, his likeness is used to create a robot. It's kinda like Apple making its first-round android with Steve Jobs' face. Say it out loud and it actually sounds believable. Then you remember that Henriksen also appeared in Alien 3 as a man claiming to be Bishop's creator, a descendant of the company's founder who looks exactly the same. Notice how the original Weyland fidgets with a pencil the same way Bishop plays with a knife in Cameron's film? It suggests that even personality traits were transferred into the android programming. And just a bit of foreshadowing, Charles Bishop Weyland, that is his full name, will be killed by a predator. Which means Lance Henriksen joins Bill Paxton in that exclusive club, presumably killed by a Terminator in a police station, torn apart by the alien queen and now taken out by a predator, and he is not the last. The characters head to Antarctica, where they discover a pyramid that combines elements of all major ancient civilizations. But it turns out to be a hunting ground designed to test young predators, allowing them to earn their blooded status. Every 100 years, 3 Yautja arrive and start producing alien eggs using a queen hidden beneath the ice. Judging by her size, she has been there for thousands of years, which makes it kind of ironic that Ripley spent her life trying to stop aliens from reaching Earth, when they have apparently been here all along. Predators have been coming here for centuries, hunting aliens that humans who worship them helped cultivate. And this is where the questions start. Clearly, the predators did not expect to find humans stealing their weapons. But how were they hunting here during the Ice Ages? Their human followers have not lived there for a very long time. In the sacrificial chamber, they find people who willingly allowed facehuggers to attach to them. Yet, on the surface, there was a whaling station. Could the predators have forced people into it? That does not really line up with other details. Why does some predator gear melt from alien blood while other pieces do not? Why does activating the pyramid require entering a date based on the Christian calendar? Do the Yautja follow our system of timekeeping now? The plot is full of holes, and if you look closely, it really does not hold up. But this is not the main point here. For the first time, aliens and predators finally clash on screen, and it is intense and visually exciting.
You are one ugly mother.
Characters, dialogue, and story come second. Ridley Scott was right when he said that the very idea of this crossover kills creativity and turns real cinema into cheap fan service action. And yes, that is true. But in Anderson's case, I have to admit that it's not that bad. Sometimes you can just enjoy something like this. Predators slice through humans and xenomorphs in style. Well, technically one predator does. The other 2 young Yautja are killed by the same alien, an absolutely unstoppable creature. As we know, xenomorphs inherit traits from their hosts. This one clearly came out of Chuck Norris. They even marked it with a cutting net just so we know who the toughest xenomorph is. Speaking of the net, it now slices victims into perfectly even cubes, which makes it especially fitting that this fate befalls Colin Salmon's character. You might ask, who's that? He's the guy who got diced into cubes by a laser grid in Resident Evil, also directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. The man really likes slicing and dicing salmon. See what I did there? The Predator's iconic disc was also redesigned. Anderson did not like its original look, so he replaced it with a more stylish shuriken. By the end, only one Predator, credited as Scar, earns his blooded mark, and teams up with Alexa Woods, played by Sana Lathan. Her character follows in the footsteps of Machiko Noguchi, a human who earns the blooded mark and is accepted by the Predators. She doesn't leave with them for Yautja Prime, which makes sense. Noguchi agreed to it because she was stranded on a hostile planet. Alexa is far from home too, but judging how confidently she heads toward a snowmobile in the finale, she clearly knows her way back. In the end, all the aliens and predators die, and Scar dies in Alexa's arms. So the tagline, "Whoever wins, we lose," is not entirely accurate. Humans win, and if you overlook the rather slow first half, which tries to make you care about cardboard characters through basic dialogue, it turns out to be a decent piece of entertainment, with a strong tease for a sequel. It turns out Scar was already implanted with an alien, and aboard the Yautja ship, a Predalien is born. It had already appeared in comics back in 1995, and now it was finally making its way to the big screen. The film made $177 million, which gave the crossover another chance. I remember watching it in 2004 and really wanting a sequel. What can I say? Be careful what you wish for. To direct the sequel, they brought in the Strauss brothers, music video directors who had solid experience in visual effects, but had never made a full-length film before. So Fox decided to play it safe and cut the budget down to $40 million. Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, picks up exactly where the first film left off. The Predalien kills the predators on board and crash lands, along with a bunch of facehuggers in a small town in Colorado.
It's alien!
Honestly, that's a pretty interesting setup. One of the defining traits of Predator movies is the constant change of setting. Jungle, big city, Antarctica, and now a quiet little town. To deal with the new alien threat and clean up the mess, they send in a seasoned Predator, one who even lost part of his upper mandible in previous battles. Before he arrives, we get a brief glimpse of the Yautja homeworld. It would be nice to learn more about it, but not yet. For the first time since the original, we are actually shown an experienced hunter, not a rookie, although to be fair, the original Predator might have been a beginner too, going through initiation, but he still looked far more professional than his successors. The crew nicknamed this Predator Wolf after Harvey Keitel's character from Pulp Fiction, a professional cleaner and problem solver, and that is exactly what he does. He moves through the town of Gunnison, erasing all traces of the aliens while leaving behind his own skinned trophies hanging around. Just look at how well he cleaned up that school. Not a single body. Sure, everything is covered in blood, but apparently that is not supposed to raise any questions. Wolf is equipped with a huge number of gadgets and brand new traps. Everything about him emphasizes his skill. And as the Strauss brothers themselves said, they have always loved the Predator more. So, the balance of power clearly leans in his favor. Oh right, there are a few other characters in the movie too. They all have some kind of backstory and a clear desire to be memorable, but it just doesn't work. The only ones worth mentioning are the annoying pizza guy played by David Hornsby, Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a show I love, and the military character played by Rayco Aylesworth because I'm a fan of 24, and that is Michelle Dessler. Other than that, there are no standout characters. But the sequel does stand out in one very specific way, its absolute brutality. Characters die in droves, no one is safe. Gender, age, it doesn't matter. Even a pregnant woman in a hospital becomes a victim of the Predalien. And here's the twist, the hybrid is so powerful that it can implant multiple chest bursters directly into victims without using facehuggers. That is an interesting idea, but it completely breaks the established biology of xenomorphs. Even in the comics, Predaliens never did anything like that. The directors tried to explain it by saying that since the creature came from a predator, it is essentially a queen that has not started laying eggs yet. So it implants embryos directly. That explanation did not really convince fans either. But the main problem is not the weak story or the lore inconsistencies, the movie is just badly shot. Cinematographer Daniel Pearl criticized the first film for being too bright, saying it killed the horror. Yeah, very scary. So he made a movie where you can barely see anything at all. Then the editor chopped the story together like it was done with an axe. And the Strauss brothers looked at it and thought it was great. The film completely loses the dumb, fun energy of Anderson's version. Yes, it is darker, yes, it's much more violent, but it's just not engaging to watch. Toward the end, the characters contact the government, which decides not to bother saving civilians and simply nukes the town. There was supposed to be a cameo by Adam Baldwin, who worked with Gary Busey's character in Predator 2, but it didn't happen. It is kind of funny that the sequel to an Anderson film directed by someone else ends exactly the same way as another sequel to an Anderson film, also directed by someone else. Raccoon City was handled the same way in Resident Evil Apocalypse. Wolf and the Predalien mortally wound each other against the backdrop of a nuclear explosion, while the surviving characters escape in a helicopter, taking a Predator weapon with them. That weapon ends up in the hands of Miss Yutani, played by Françoise Yip.
This isn't for our world, is it, Miss Yutani?
The second half of A Weyland Yutani could have appeared in the first film, but they saved it for later to tease a third installment. The movie made $130 million but was completely destroyed by critics. Fox decided to step away from the crossover idea and move forward with Prometheus by Ridley Scott, which essentially erased Alien vs. Predator from the canon. It turns out xenomorphs were created shortly before the events of the first Alien, meaning predators could not have been hunting them in ancient times or in the 21st century. Personally, I think the crossovers fit more naturally into the evolution of the franchise than Scott's prequels. But the universes themselves are still alive, still evolving, and already moving toward another collision. You can learn about that in the massive Ultimate History videos about Alien and Predator on my channel. Just click the cards on screen and enjoy the watch. Thanks for watching, this is 11 Slate.